we're good to go.
All right. Thank you for joining us, everybody, for the first of our pre-conference workshops for the SUNY OER Summit 2023. We are thrilled to have you. We're thrilled that the summit's happening this year virtually.
Yeah, you can see that.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. There we go. I'm sorry about that. Yes, and we're joined today by our two presenters who I'll introduce. So Ed Beck has been working in the educational technology field since 2023. His current position is at SUNY Oneonta as the Open and Online Learning Specialist. He works with faculty on the development of online, hybrid, and face-to-face courses. Some of his interests include scaffolding digital competencies across the curriculum, and the exploration, adoption, and creation of high-quality open resources. He's one of the co-founders of the SUNY Create initiative that invites students to help build a web presence using open source tools, which we'll learn more about today. And Ruth Ann Carpenter is a digital scholarship librarian at Binghamton University, where they help develop digital scholarship initiatives that promote innovative research and creative engagement in and outside the classroom. Their research interests revolve around exploring the intersections of technology, social justice, digital humanities, and project management. And I just want to take a moment to thank Ruth and Ed for being willing to present and share their work with us, and to SUNY CPD, and especially Megan Martin, who's been awesome helping set the conference up. And I will let you take it away now, Ed and Ruth.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us here today. Ruth, go ahead.
Sure. I'm Ruth. I'm a digital scholarship librarian at Binghamton. So today, Ed and I are just going to go over kind of some workflows for managing SUNY Create and creating different projects in SUNY Create, and kind of just give a more of a background into kind of how the web itself is organized. And ways of understanding that. So if you are planning on following along with us today, if you don't already have an account with SUNY Create, if you could follow these links, we can toss them into chat as well, just to make them easier to get to, and start signing up. And then we're going to be talking for a bit, so there'll be plenty of time.
Yeah, we're going to do an introduction, but if you put in your interest form right now, that'll let Corey and Tony and the other people from SUNY promote your account, give you full access, so that when we get to that point of the hands-on demo, you'll be all set up and approved to go. We heard that there might be some people here from outside of SUNY. And so for people from outside of SUNY, if you want to follow along, you can't use our SUNY Create infrastructure, but the same host that we use, Reclaim Hosting, also has kind of very similar infrastructure set up. It's their demo site to show what they can do for colleges and universities. And that's what that stateu.org is. It will look just like ours looks, except it's just a generic site, and your site will not be permanent if you set it up at State U. They do go out periodically and clean that out, but it will be perfect for this type of workshop where we just want to get our hands dirty a little bit and look at some open source technology. We recently did a redesign of the whole SUNY Create site. SUNY Create is what we call a domain of one's own initiative. And that means giving students a domain kind of early in their career and letting them use it as a sandbox, playground to play in, building sites, tearing down sites. And we use kind of the metaphor of a toolbox throughout our rebranding. And that's partly the approach that SUNY has given when they set up SUNY Create. They didn't come in and say, like, here's exactly what you must use and how you must use it. think of this as, we talk about software as a service all the time, where a company comes in and sets up your software for you, and they do that as a service. Think of this as like one step higher than this. It's platform as a service. They've given you the tools, but aren't giving you much in order of what to do with it. It's an open playground. And so when we have that kind of visual of the toolbox throughout it, think about that in terms of what that means for the support that people get, for what people are able to do. This is kind of a place to come in and play with some open source technology, but not necessarily a lot of rules or a lot of support and help. It's a platform that you can use. So we've kind of built an agenda of what we'd like to do today. Some of it is going to be more of a traditional presentation. We're going to try to keep that a little short, but we are going to spend kind of a half an hour to kind of talk about what SUNY Create is, how we're using it on our campuses, and then we're going to try to get into the more of the hands-on demo where we can go through and break apart, like, okay, what is this cPanel account we've given you access to? What does that mean? And then we can go through and talk about what that means in terms of the OER initiative as well, because we're here at an OER day. And so why are we talking about open source technology? I hope we can wrap this all up and then still have a bunch of meaningful time to play. Anything you want to add there, Ruth?
Nope. I would just say I'm coming at this from a very particular side of things. So I'm a digital scholarship librarian. A lot of the support that I do is for faculty, graduate student projects, and just a little bit on the side of classroom support. But they're all related. They're all kind of the same workflow. They're all the same best practices.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that, because I come in from a different viewpoint. As an instructional designer, I mostly think about classes, right? I'm thinking about infrastructure, courses, classes, and we know that throughout SUNY, different people are supporting the OER initiative, and that might vary from campus to campus. I always think the best team is a diverse team, coming from a variety of different approaches. I think we've got a good handle on that at Oneonta, where we have a partnership between kind of a more IT-centric faculty center and a more scholarly communications-focused library. We just want to know a little bit about you as we get started. We've got a couple questions we're going to ask you. First is how you're feeling as you come into today. How do you feel when you learn new technologies or when you learn new things? How would you say that about yourself? If you could just throw that into the chat, let us know. Okay. Okay. See, most people are rating themselves from 3 to 4. I'm comfortable with technology, but I might need a little extra help when learning something new. I used to joke about, everything I know about cars is because it broke on my first one. Everything I know about websites is because I broke it. So I hope that people feel that experience of fun, and it's okay to break things. You probably can't break things in ways that you can't fix it. Diana, I'm really curious why try a Tesla was your reaction to that. I'd love to know what you mean by that. Another question is, what brought you here? Are you coming? Playing with different tech. I would love a Tesla to play with the different tech. I've test driven one. How about why are you here? This one's, we used A, B, C, D, E. If you're still answering the first, go ahead and keep letting us know where you are comfort with technology. But what are you doing here? So I'm seeing a lot of C's, people who are here in support roles, and they're interested in learning how they can support other people. Okay. Some people are familiar with our infrastructure already, but want to know more about how to teach them.
But we'll do our best to model that.
Yeah, we're with
Little
your
bit.
permission, we're going to treat you like you're a student. We're going to go through and show it to you like we would show a class. And I hope that's helpful. And then I have to admit, I'm not great at writing stuff down and having good documentation, but you know who is really good at that? Is Ruth. And Ruth has a whole bunch of stuff that they will share. So I think that's a good thing. And then Freeform. Tell us who you are and what your role is. And this happens to me now. If I ever click on someone's name or click near someone's name, it starts doing DMs. Okay, we got librarians.
A lot of librarians.
We
A
love
lot of fellow
librarians.
librarians.
But faculty members?
A lot of librarians from the OER side of things.
Instructors. All right. Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Academic advising. Academic advising, you know, we started partly growing out of this initiative. We started doing more working with our academic advisors and our career advisors. That's been a new development for us at Oneonta and been a lot of fun because that's not a department we normally integrated with a lot. And so to work with students, especially as they're getting e-portfolios ready, has been a lot of fun.
So we've already kind of said a lot of words at this point, where if you're not familiar to what SUNY Create is, might be a little confusing. So SUNY Create is our instance of Reclaim Hosting's domain of one's own service. And I think we've mentioned a domain of one's own service already. And we're also I think Ed mentioned access to a cPanel. So these are just different layers that come together to create SUNY Create. Those are all the layers involved. And it just means that it is a platform, like Ed was saying, with a bunch of tools already ready to go to be used and installed within that platform. So it's tools that you might be familiar with, like WordPress, Drupal, Omeka. I think of these as kind of like apps that you download into a space to use. But then there's also a bunch of other tools for managing and maintaining your digital projects. So it is like having your own personal server, but it scales really nicely, I think, from people who just want maybe a couple apps on there to use, build a quick site, to if you want to get really involved in server management and really customizing your experience. It can do both things really well.
Yeah, so when we say SUNY Create, what we're doing is we're allowing you to install and use a variety of open source web building tools. Now, OER services is what brought us here today. All our things that are on here are open. They're open access by default. They're available by default. But what we've also found at Oneonta and in conversations with other people is it's a really nice moment as you're creating content to talk about licensing, to teach about what OER is, what different licenses are. It might start with just a simple conversation around media. Like, oh, hey, I see you have some nice images on your website. Did you attribute those to where you got those? Do you know that if you have permission to use those websites, can I show you a place where people share images and they're all openly licensed, so they give you the permission to use them? So a further conversation of, hey, now that we've had that conversation about licensing and you saw how nice it was when someone else gave you permission to use their work, what would you think about putting a license on what you've created? What would that look like to you? How should we talk about these different licenses and give that as an opportunity to talk about licensing? I think that's the real connection with OER here, because we're talking about the open source tools, which means they themselves are openly licensed, and sharing. And then we can really start to talk about, okay, what does it mean when we're sharing in those public spaces? I'm going to be here and I'm trying to make the argument, and this is my soapbox for a long time, that the licensing matters. And the licensing matters when we're making open source projects, and the infrastructure, the licensing on the infrastructure matters. Now, we have a couple partners in SUNY. Some of them used closed and proprietary tools. Some of them use open tools. I'm the person that says I think we should be using more and more open tools. And I'm thinking about this as in like, okay, if Ed Beck believes we should be using more and more open tools, what are small yet significant places that we can start? Could it be as simple, if you believe in open source tools, of just learning a little bit about open source tools and running your own personal website, which is low stakes and not tied to your job? But running edbeck.com so that you have a little slice of the web that's all yours, and you're learning about managing an open source tool so that you feel comfortable that the next time that a good project comes up that might use an open source tool or could use a closed source tool, you have the experience to say, oh, I've been doing this for a little while on my server just for myself. I think this might be a good project to put on WordPress. I think this might be a good project to put on Pressbooks. I think this might be a good repository to put in Omeka. So I'm constantly thinking about this licensing. And some of our tools that we have available are open and I'm not trying to create new purity tests, because the open community can often fight with each other about what is open enough and what is pure enough. What I would say is, if you are starting a project and you have the choice between two similar tools that would both meet your needs, and one is open and one is not, that's where I would always choose the open. And so I'm making the argument that licensing matters, and there are people posting and sharing all over. When I stop talking and Ruth starts talking, I'll put in the chat, just yesterday, Kathleen Fitzpatrick, who helps lead some of the open source tools over at Michigan State University, put on her blog a new post and said open matters. And they're talking about all the labor that they put into academic Twitter, which is not an open platform. It's a public platform, but it's not an open platform. And when Twitter got sold, they felt like a lot of their labor that they put in over the years had gone to something that had transformed into something else. So they have been trying to build a community on Mastodon, open source software, controlled by her institution, controlled by her organizations, to have that academic space. And as she's thinking about that, she published on her blog, like many of us in this community do, like we run our own little websites, and that's how we connect with each other, to have the conversation about why open matters. I'm going to throw that into the chat, but it's the argument I want to keep putting forward is we need to respect open source tools, and that's tough to do. It's easier sometimes as a big organization like SUNY to make a big contract, like say with Desire to Learn, an outside entity that says we will do software as a service, we're going to set you up, we're going to have everything, you don't need to worry about anything, it's just going to work beautifully, compared to do what like the German higher ed institutions do, where every German higher ed institution is run on Moodle and open source software. So I want to keep having that conversation, thinking about how do we respect open source tools? How do we use those in our spaces? Because I believe it really matters. And that's why I want to be here at a conference about OER and low cost and openly licensed textbooks. And I'm all hung up on the infrastructure. This is why I want to keep having this conversation.
Yeah, and a lot of the open conversation from my end of things, especially working with a lot of graduate students, is keeping them in spaces that they'll continue to have control over, and control over their content, and not just giving them access to tools that are only available to them as long as they are Binghamton students. But that they will continue to have control and access to whether or not they're even in academia anymore. And having those conversations very early in the project stages as ways to maintain that sort of control over their content, and yeah, where and how they're building is always a part of that.
All right, so I promised, I put that article in the chat from Kathleen Fitzpatrick. Great work in the digital humanities. You know, I think that it's important that we highlight out what other large state systems are doing this, who are our heroes in this place. You know, she's one of my heroes in this space. Continuing the conversation, you know, it's been 15 years since the Cape Town Open Education Declaration. And one piece of that was saying, hey, we're talking about open educational resources, but we need to stop and think about more. We need to think about open education practices. We need to think about the open infrastructure as well. This is why I want to keep having this conversation. And it's not just like an Ed Beck thing. It's a thing that we've been talking about in the open community for a really long time. Okay. So we've said SUNY Create so many times that the word has lost its meaning. So we want to show you what some people have been doing with SUNY Create. And what I am going to do is reference you to the SUNY Create showcase. So I am going to visit sunycreate.cloud. And when you visit that main site, I want to show in the top right corner, we've got a showcase site that's available. And if you come over here, over the last couple weeks, we have had around 15 people submit sites that are already on SUNY Create using a variety of platforms, using them for academic or community or scholarship. And I just wanted to invite you to look through some of them. The idea here is to start with a demo, to start with showing what is possible in SUNY Create. And then when we're done with that, then we can get into like, okay, how does this actually work though? I'll pick out a couple of my favorites for those that just kind of want to look and absorb. And if you're in the showcase now clicking around, that's okay too. A lot of these are from SUNY Oneonta, because, you know, I know some people at SUNY Oneonta who built some stuff with SUNY Create. And one of my recent projects that I really liked was this multicultural children's book repository that the Suryati Abbas called Booktique. Sue Abbas came with one to Oneonta, and she was already one of the Open Education Fellows through the Open Education Research Group. She was already interested in open pedagogy, and so has become a fast collaborator now that they're here. That's, you know, Josh Hilton and David Wiley's research group around open OER and open educational practices. Didn't recreate her entire course around this project, but just wanted a place where students could share multicultural books that they're using in their classroom, what their response to it, and what their teaching ideas were. And the idea of this website was that they could be able to come in here and say, oh, I was looking for a fiction book for grades 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade, and what do we have in this catalog of those things? They've done it with a couple different classes now where they've used the same site over and over again. So the catalog is getting kind of big, where there's a lot of things in here. And as it becomes bigger, it becomes a little bit more useful because it's filterable and sortable. And so you can come in here and say things like, oh, I'm looking for a book that highlights African Americans. It's fiction for 2nd, 3rd, or 4th grades. Or actually, I'll look for, see if there's like a nonfiction. Just a little website built on WordPress using the SUNY Create infrastructure. And I like that little project. I'll go back out to the showcase site. And one of the things that we wanted to do with this site is we wanted to be able to showcase all of the different platforms. Now, when we get into the nitty gritty, we're going to install a WordPress site on our SUNY Create site. And most of the sites on SUNY Create, honestly, WordPress is an easy one to pick and use. So we see a lot of WordPress sites, but we wanted to really highlight the ones that chose something other than WordPress, like creating a repository using museum software and picking something like Omeka S. We've got a hand up. Go ahead, come off mute. Let us know what you're thinking about.
Hi, Ed. This is Ann over at SUNY Sullivan. I'm trying to follow along with you on this page, but I'm not seeing all of this stuff you have on the left.
You're not seeing the stuff you have on the left?
These, choices, sort results by.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then when I clicked on the boutique, which is really lovely, I just get it. I didn't have all those search options. I'm just curious if it's different somehow on your.
I wonder if it's collapsed because you're on a smaller screen. I'm not exactly sure what's happening. If you go back and click on showcase again in the top right corner, see if that kind of resets your page and see, if I got this narrower, it would disappear.
Yeah, I don't think I've got two screens here, so
You got two screens on.
Anyway, okay. I don't think it's crucial. I'm just going to keep following along. I can always follow up with you later on some of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We've got some people that submitted even some flat sites that were built. When we'll talk about later about static sites versus dynamic sites. So Paul Schacht at Geneseo shared, I made some flat file sites, some sites that are just made of HTML, not made of like a dynamic database. And so those are there. We've got some things created by students. We got some things created by students and staff. So I hope that that's fun to see and maybe like inspiring about like, okay, he keeps talking about SUNY Create, but what could people actually do with it? And I think there's a heck of a lot of different directions that you could go with it. Any questions about this?
Hey Ed, this is Matt, SUNY Canton.
Hey.
What's the review process like for this when somebody wants to submit a site?
We have just a simple form you can fill out if you want to submit a site. We currently do not have a robust review policy. We just kind of check it to make sure that the metadata is going to work and that it will work in our catalog. And then we'd love to highlight more sites if you know of people who would like to be put in the catalog. I think that'd be wonderful.
Gotcha. After they submit, I'm guessing it still points to the original site, so they can still modify even though the site is submitted and being advertised.
That is true to a point. When they submit, they do have to submit a screenshot, and that screenshot is not dynamically updated. They have to actually just take a quick picture and submit that site, and that will not change over time. But when you visit the site, then their site can continue to evolve and change.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Ruth, did you want to? I know you had a couple things that you were going to show that's currently not in the catalog yet. Were you gonna?
Did I, Ed? I am currently on a I guess research journey of minimal website building, and also there are a couple of movements kind of happening at the same time that I'm interested in. One is the digital gardening movement, and then one is sort of a nostalgia movement, so going back to the days of GeoCities. And it's just weird to me that they're happening at the same time. They have very different aesthetics, and very different motives. So I've been working with a group of graduate students to create our own digital gardening sites. We're using SUNY Create to host homepages, and then we are hosting TiddlyWikis from GitHub just so it's easier to save. But we are dynamically linking between both setups. So, I mean, yeah, I can share. It's not very exciting at the moment, but I'm happy to share kind of.
Sorry, I shared my unexciting WordPress site in the chat so people could see an example of a portfolio built on WordPress.
Oh yeah, I could have just tossed the link in, sorry. I'm just going to share my whole screen. So my site for the digital gardening site is thegarden.digitalcarpenter.sunycreate.cloud. So this is just flat HTML, CSS. And if we hit this garden, you'll see that it goes to tiddlywiki.digitalcarpenter.sunycreate.cloud, but this is hosted on GitHub. So it's just redirected to there instead. And that's it, because like I said, I'm working with a group of graduate students, and this is as far as we've gotten for now. But all of this will be, we're going to mess with the fonts, with the color. We're going to set up some tags and start getting some journaling done in this space. And then hopefully we'll have 5 new submissions for the showcase once we're all done.
I like that, 5 new submissions.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go back to our slides. Now that you've got, I hope that gives you a little bit more clear idea of what kinds of things people can do on SUNY Create. Matt.
Oh, not too important, but I was just going to say that it seems like with this site you have a lot of possibilities here. When you think about a learning management system and what it really does, it's a hosted website. So I'm thinking there's a lot of things you'll get into later, more than just a website, like resources, like thinking of like activities that are in Brightspace. You could create activities with the PHP and everything inside of the SUNY Create as well. I'm really interested to see where this goes.
All right, buckle up.
Thanks.
And so we just wanted to share a little bit about like how we're managing all this on our own websites, because it seems like a lot. I promise you, my whole job isn't SUNY Create. It's something that I really enjoy doing. It might be my favorite part of my job, but it's not a huge ton of my workload. And so I think that Ruth has done a really nice job of putting some documents together, putting some MOUs together, and they're going to share that.
Yeah, and this isn't just me over here on my own. Amy Gay was the head digital scholarship librarian. She's recently moved on to Ithaca. So we worked on a lot of this documentation together. It wasn't just me sort of putting all of these things into fruition. So we started off with creating a MOU for our users. This is very similar to MOUs we use in other spaces. We have an Omeka S server in the library. We have an MOU for that as well. We have an institutional repository, which we have an MOU for. And if we're going to be doing like a large digitization project, we have an MOU for that. So we borrowed a lot of languages from those existing documents. We looked up what other campuses were doing, like SUNY Oneonta, and the documentation that they had, or at least how they introduced the service to people. So we borrowed a lot of languages from a lot of different places. But what this MOU lets us know is how people learned about the service, so we can keep tabs on where people are learning about SUNY Create, what they are planning on using it for. So if they're going to create a class website, if they're working on a personal research project, if they're just looking to use it as a sandbox, it gives us an idea of what their purpose is. And then it kind of gives us the opportunity to give them a few reminders. So reminder that they own the content that they are putting on SUNY Create, but also that they need to let us do some things to maintain control of that content. So especially for graduate students who may be leaving, they need to contact us if they want to talk about migration, so they can migrate their site out, or at least download their content, or download their files so they can migrate them later. All of those kinds of processes. So we try and start those conversations, like I said, really early. And then we have an accessibility policy that needs to be updated, and a takedown policy as well.
I just shared some things into the chat. I have a terms of use as well at Oneonta. I have an accessibility statement at Oneonta. And Ruth, could you just put the link to your MOU in the chat as well, just for people who are collecting at home?
Yes, there's our MOU. And we also have a few other kinds of documentation that we share at the start. So we have this choosing a platform. Ed, could you click that link? And then I'll toss it into chat as well. So this is just a decision tree that I built in Lucid. It needs a different home, but it works for now. And this really helps when we're doing those initial consultations with people who know they want to make something, but they're not quite sure what they want to make, or they just have the broadest of ideas. So they know they have a bunch of objects and items that they need to put into a digital collection. And sometimes I ask them if they want metadata with it, and they're like, yes, I need metadata. I'm willing to put in like all of the tags for all of the items, or I already have it. I just need a place for it all to live. And sometimes they ask me what metadata is. And then we have a conversation about what metadata is and the workflow for putting that metadata into Omeka, which is the digital collection platform. And sometimes they say that they do not have the time to put in that work. So then we move on to talking about the kind of blog they could create and the different platforms that are available there. And what this simplifies a lot of these kinds of questions, but it does break it down into sort of the frequently asked questions that we get, and the sort of the frequent preferences we hear, which is, I want to be able to fully customize whatever I'm working on, or I'm just looking for something that I can plug and play with. So it tries to address all of those different users and experiences.
Yeah. What I would say about all of this is there can be a feeling of overwhelm at the beginning if you're considering embarking on a project like this. Start small, start with like one platform, and don't try to like hamstring every project into one platform. I think the best thing that advocates for using open source software can do is find the right software for the job. The right software will just work easier for the job that it is. WordPress is built as a blogging interface. It's built as a sharing out articles periodically over time with the latest one on top. If you've got a project that seems to fit that, then WordPress is a great tool for you. Where you're going to work really hard is trying to make a tool that wasn't designed for something act like something else. So if you come in and you say, everything's got to be tagged Dublin core metadata, that's the most important thing to me, that's not how WordPress operates. It is how Omeka operates. And so getting the right tool for the right project is like half the battle, 3/4 of the battle, which is why I love this decision tree that Ruth made. At Oneana, the way this happens is it's a one-on-one consultation. Tell me what you value. Tell me what you want to do. And I'm going through this kind of like similar decision tree that only exists in my head. And they took the time to put it down on paper. So I'm glad that you have that and are able to share that. And, I would say if you're looking to support other faculty members, I start often with an honest conversation about what is my familiarity with the tool. WordPress, I know like the back of my hand at this point. Omeka, I do not. So I say to them, you're looking at Omeka and, to do a project successfully with this, I think you need to be prepared to read some documentation. If something breaks, I have a lot of experience with websites. It's transferable, and I would help you with that. But it'll probably be you and me looking at the same documentation together and figuring it out. And if you're comfortable with that, that lets me know that we can go on a project like this together. And I also, because I am an instructional designer and I have other duties at my institution, I always have the talk with them at this point that says, hey, I just want to let you know that like my core responsibilities revolve around the LMS and online learning. And if there was a day where the LMS was on fire and you had a small question about your Omeka site, I'm going to pick the LMS every single time. That's part of my professional responsibility and obligation. I would get back to you eventually, but just you'd have to be aware of that. Like, what is the level of support you can expect from me as we do this project together? I'm proud of the support that I give to my faculty members, but I do spend time creating barriers. And I just wanted to share that as so many people in the room said, I'm thinking about supporting other faculty members. And I want to say part of what I do to support other faculty members really well is let them know what I'm prepared to do and what I'm not prepared to do, which again, I think is also in Ruth's MOU that they put in writing and is part of a conversation that I have. So documentation really matters, even though I'm not very good at it.
Yeah, and I'll say on top of that, because we have those conversations a lot too, of what help we provide on a project. We are currently working on more documentation of like tiered services and tiered levels of project help. So everyone gets consultations. Everyone can like meet with us monthly on their project if they want to, depending on like time and availability. But if we have time on our calendars, like we are meeting with you, no questions asked. But then having additional tiers of like, well, when does our more like hands-on help come in as needed? And then what does that agreement look like? Right now, it looks like getting credit on a project, which we don't currently ask for at tier 1 level. And then also, when do we get written into grants versus not written into grants? And when does that conversation need to happen? So we're having those bigger conversations too around project management and project involvement. Another document that I won't go into too much, but that we do share is our project management plan that we give to people. Sometimes project management plans are a new concept, and it can help give people that time to break down their ideas, and then we can do like a follow-up consultation and make sure that they're making the decisions that make sense for their project at those early stages, as opposed to waiting until later.
Any questions about the support we're giving to faculty members? All right. Hearing none, we're going to get into the digital knowledge. And I'm going to start with URLs, because as I talk about URLs and wax poetic about what URLs are, you have to be doing a very important thing. You have to be thinking about what URL you want on SUNYcreate.cloud. We give you a free subdomain. Now, I have a very vanilla subdomain on SUNYcreate.cloud. It is edbeck.sunycreate.cloud. It's very plain. It is just for me. Ruth, you want to share yours?
Mine is, I mean, when you saw it earlier, it is digitalcarpenter.sunycreate.cloud.
I love that.
It is nice to have a last name that is very punnable.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as we're starting to think about URLs, I want to go kind of through a history of the internet through SUNY Create. And I'm going to start at the beginning of it. I'm going to start at the protocol at the very beginning. We give credit to Sir Tim Berners-Lee for inventing the World Wide Web. He was building on previous work. IP addresses had already been created. The idea of transfer between different computers had already been created, but he kind of wrote the specification for HTTP and what most websites are made up of, HTML, and the first internet browser, the World Wide Web. And it is possible to have more than one, but it's kind of an advanced ask. That's kind of something that you have to put a ticket into oer@suny.edu. It is possible, but you'll have to give some more information about it. So when we start and we say the protocol, that is how computers talk to each other. So when we're thinking about this, we're going all the way back to 1989. We're going all the way back to 1989, because this is kind of the history of the internet. To have that conversation, we have to talk about servers. And what SUNY Create is, at its most basic, is what we call a LAMP server. It's what we call a LAMP stack. And I'm going to get into jargon here. What I always tell people is, like, I'm talking the jargon and I'll stop and explain it, because this is kind of like the keys to the kingdom for technical people. So we're going to talk about LAMP servers. What does it mean when we say I have a LAMP server? It means that you have a computer, and the computer is running the Linux operating system. Instead of, Windows or Mac OS, we're using the free and open source operating system, Linux. Could you have a web server that runs on Windows? Yes, just a little more expensive because you have to buy that license. Could you have one that runs on Mac OS? Yes, it's just a little more expensive because you have to buy that license. The program that I want to focus on right now is called Apache. Apache is a free open source program that makes one folder on your server public and readable on the internet. And so what our first kind of hands-on activity is going to be messing with individual files in a folder. And Apache is what makes this possible. It says, when you visit a URL, what folder do you want me to show? What file do you want me to show? And so when we talk about, what's in this domain, what we're really talking about is you have an IP address. And we've given your IP address, that no one could ever remember, a very memorable name. So if you went and typed into your browser right now, http://15.204.130.83/about, you would go to a specific folder on my server, and you'd look at the file named about on my server. That's not very nice. So we came up with a domain naming service. When you hear the words DNS, when it comes to online, DNS is just simply renaming an IP address to a human, readable, and memorable name. So that, that server that I've got here, you could get to the same server by following both of those directions. So IP address is just that computer readable URL. And then through DNS, through that little bit of jargon, we're renaming that IP address something that people could actually remember. And we're looking at the about file that's in that folder. Now, if we look at this domain, we've got three parts. We've got the domain itself, Oneonta. We have the top level domain. For us, it's .edu because we connected to the oneonta.edu website. But there's other top level domains available now. In the last couple of years, they've really expanded. It used to be just .com, .org, .gov. Then we got things like .info. When SUNY Create came out, they had just opened up the cloud top level domain. That's why we're at sunycreate.cloud. That's .cloud is our top level domain. So we own sunycreate.cloud, and what we are willing to give you is a free subdomain, whatever you would like. Helen, yes, you can. The question in the chat was, can I create a SUNY Create domain using a departmental email? And the answer is yes, it depends. If your departmental email is connected to the SUNY single sign-on, and you can log in through the SUNY single sign-on, then yes, you could use that departmental email. If it is not connected through the SUNY single sign-on, we'd have to do it a different way. It's still possible, but that would be like a ticket to oer@suny.edu, and that they would have to handle that for you. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to walk you through signing up for SUNY Create. We're going to go back to our sunycreate.cloud. And at this point, if you had done the interest form when you first got here, you should now be able to go in and click on login. When you do that, the first screen that's going to come up is going to say, okay, what do you want your domain to be? What would you like your domain to be? Mine didn't go through that screen because I'd already selected it, but I want to give you a couple seconds to pick your domain and finish the sign up for SUNY Create. I just got Tony and Corey, I just got a message from another professor that said they're still in the interest form stage that's been received. Could you just double check? It's Professor Rajaseskar Vanjapati.
Yep, I think I've been able to change everybody.
Okay, so could you reload that screen? I think that they just said that they've taken care of and improved your account. Be a little bit careful when you do this. Treat it like a credit card transaction. So don't click submit too many times with your mouse. But if nothing is happening and you've counted to 15, go ahead and press submit one more time. Sometimes it's a little bit of a risk doing this as a group and doing it all at the same time because, you know, it's setting up files and servers. Gian, when I personated you in the account, everything is looking okay. So maybe your connection was just being a little bit slow, but it looks like you are all set. Anyone else having a little bit trouble right now? Our professor from FIT says that he's still not in yet. I'll just quickly check that account. It looks like you are all set. So if you try again, and if you're having a really hard time, could you just try to reload your browser? It might be kind of stuck in there. You will not get an email confirming approval. You just go back to the website. Okay. Now, when we get back to SUNY Create and we've logged in successfully, we're now looking at a cPanel account. Now, I love that we're giving away cPanel accounts because cPanel is kind of like the industry standard or one of the industry standards. If you were going to go and buy hosting, if I went to Bluehost, if I went to GoDaddy, if I went to HostGator and went to buy a website, I'd probably be given a cPanel account. cPanel is just a tool that lets us see the computer that is our server. And this computer is like many other computers. It's got a file manager and a file area, and I can go in here and look at that. Mine has a lot of files in it. Yours will have fewer. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Ruth, who's going to talk to you about files, linking files together, and you're going to make the most basic website. You're going to make an HTML website just as a little exercise. Spoiler warning, you might get lost during this tutorial. The big takeaway we want you to take away is that websites are made of files, and those files are connected together. Okay, so I'm telling you at the beginning what the big takeaway is going to be. If you get lost, don't worry, we'll come back and get you. Okay? Ruth, do you want to take over at this point and share your screen?
Yeah, I am tossing the documentation sites for Reclaim and cPanel because I cannot help myself. So those are their documentation sites. And I often, especially for users who I know are already comfortable working with new tools, I often just point them to these documentation sites. Especially cPanel, because if they do want to get more into server management, it's really helpful to understand the layers and when to go to which service for help. Let me share my screen. And I want to share my whole screen, I think. Yeah. Because I'm going to be downloading files. Okay. I'm going to hide these. My controls. All right, so this is the cPanel. You can see to my right in my general information, I can see what my primary domain is. So it's digitalcarpenter.sunycreate.cloud. And if I wanted to visit that just to see what's on there, I can type it in. And like I said, I'm into minimal computing right now, and building very simple sites that are sort of more towards this net nostalgia end. So I have this very simple, kind of tacky website that I am working on right now. So but sorry, my meeting controls came back, so I'm just going to actually hide them. Okay. And if I go back to my cPanel, if I scroll down a bit, there's this tool here called Files. This is your file management area. So this is where all the files live. For the apps that you might be downloading, or if you're creating websites from scratch, this is where they're going to be served from. So I'm going to go into my file manager, which is this little person with a folder, and click on that. And it's going to take me to this page here. And you'll see I have a few different things in here. You might not have as much if you've just created an account. So that website that I just showed you is being served out of this public HTML folder to the left of my screen. So that's where those files are housed, and that's where they're being accessed from. I also have a couple of subdomains. So I have the sample class.digitalcarpenter that currently has an Elementor WordPress site that I use for teaching in classes. And then you have the sites that I showed you a little bit ago. So there's the garden.digitalcarpenter, and that is this site. Well, not this site, but this site right here. So my HTML, my CSS files are in there for that site. But then it also has my TiddlyWiki subdomain. Now there's nothing in here because it's just there to point to GitHub. But it exists in my SUNY Create as my subdomain. And for now, for the rest of this workshop, I'm going to be in this workshops.digitalcarpenter.sunycreate.cloud subdomain. This is where I do a lot of my just testing of things or showing people things with workshops. So if I go to this site, right now it has the default folders that or default files that are in anyone's sort of public HTML folder when you first create a SUNY Create website. So if you go to your domain and look at it, you're going to, and you haven't done anything with it, you're going to see something that looks like this. You might have the SUNY Oneonta red, you might have the blue SUNY. It's just going to depend on when you created your account. But this is what is being served from that folder. And if we go to that folder, we can look at those files. So this is a JPEG image. It's our background. We have our default HTML. And we have this jQuery, which lets us stretch the image. Now we want to change this to be something a little more personal about how we are working on our own site and we are constructing something. So we're going to turn it into just a landing page. That's a little more personal. And I'm going to toss in, or Ed, could you toss in the files? They're linked on the PowerPoint, the folder.
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you. So what I'm going to be doing is creating not a subdomain of this subdomain, but a directory instead. And you can do this if you're in your public HTML folder, you can do the same thing. I'm going to be creating a subdirectory in my workshops.digitalcarpenter. And what a subdirectory is as a difference to a subdomain is exactly what Ed was showing with that about folder at the end of the URL, that's a subdirectory. So if I click this plus folder, it's in the top left corner, so plus folder, right under File Manager. So add a folder, it's going to ask me my folder name, and I want it to be something very simple and easy to type. So I'm just going to type homepage. You can type whatever you want. Don't put any spaces in it or special characters, but homepage, and create a new folder. And you'll see that it's put this folder into my subdomain area. Now I can point to this homepage folder by going to workshops.digitalcarpenter.sunycreate.cloud/homepage. But there's nothing there. And you'll see that it actually takes me, because the browser tries to find that index, and that index is just everything that is in that directory. So it takes me to this weird index page. So this is what we're going to be changing. So I'm going to click into this folder to open it, and we'll see this directory is empty. And if you've got those two workshop files, one is an index.html, one is a stylesheet.css. And we want to open the, upload those files into this new directory that we've created. So I'm going to go to this upload button. And then it's going to send me to this screen where we can select files. So I'll select file. This was already pointed to where I needed to go, but it might send you someplace else. So maybe those are in your downloads folder, so you'll want to go there. My files are in this folder here with homepage. I've got an index, which I'm going to open. And I've got this stylesheet.css, which I'm going to open. And then I can just go back to that directory that I'm working in. Now, from here, I can go back. So this is that workshops. I'm going to put in my subdirectory to point to exactly where I want to go. And we'll see that it's changed, right? I've got some new text here. It says coming soon, digital portfolio, and this site is currently under construction. This is HTML. This is basic HTML. It's got some styling in it because HTML has some built-in styling. But other than that, it's pretty empty. I'm going to exit out of that. We can edit these pages directly from the cPanel if we select this and we go to edit. It's going to give us a warning about encoding. We're going to hit edit. And we'll be taken to this page. Now, this isn't the prettiest or most useful HTML editor or file editor. So if you prefer working with something like VS Code, that's a little bit more helpful than just this. You can just re-upload your new files. But we're just making little changes. So maybe instead of, you'll see this is all commented out with exactly what each of these lines do. If you're unfamiliar with HTML documents, because I know we're going pretty fast here, just know that HTML documents are made up of these different tags. And these tags communicate to the browser how and where it should display things, right? So this head tag has some metadata about our site in it. So it has the character encoding information. This site title, if we go to here, you'll see that that pops up in this tab. So this is how you can label your site tab. So I can change this to be, digital portfolio instead. And we'll see that that will get updated. And maybe instead of just digital portfolio, I want my name to be there. So I'll put in my name. And then we have, besides this head tag, where I've just put my name in, it's kind of nested in these different areas. So we have this body tag that lets us know we're in the main content area of our website. I have this div class, which is a transparent box, which I will look at in the CSS and kind of what that does. But it just creates a layer between our text and our background image that makes it pop up a little bit more. And then we have this main area. And this main area is where sort of that content of our site lives and goes. So this is where our headings go. So we have an H1 and H2. We have a horizontal line just for aesthetics, but also to help break up the information, and a paragraph. And if this is unfamiliar, if this looks intimidating, just know that what's important is sort of how these documents talk to each other, and not necessarily understanding what each of these tags is doing. So if we go back to this site, it's not going to change because I have to save. So make sure you are saving your changes in this top right corner. So I'm going to save changes. And now when I go back here and update, we'll see that those changes happen. The next thing is, because we want this to be more properly designed than just the plain HTML, we can add a style sheet to our website, and that's what this does. So this style sheet, we'll look at this, edit, has these same tag languages as in our HTML document. So it has the body HTML tag. It has this div that I created, this transparent box div. It's got that main area tag. It's got that horizontal line. And then if we wanted to, we could adjust our headings as well to look a little bit different. But we can see that the information we have here directly corresponds to the information that we have in our HTML document. So this is going to style each of those layers from our HTML file. But we need to get them to talk to each other a little bit. So the way we do that is going back to our index. And we're going to edit. And you'll see in this head tag where I said kind of the metadata of our site lives, this final line should be line 10, is our style sheet information. And this hypertext reference, or this href information, needs a URL or a file path. So it knows where to pull the styling information from. So we can just type style sheet, make sure you spell it correctly, and you don't have any spaces on either side. So like that's not going to work. So style sheet.css, because that's what we've named our style sheet. If we had named this something different, we would need to also name this path name something different. And now we're going to save these changes. And then when we refresh this, we'll see that that style sheet gets applied because we have made those files talk to each other. So we have that flat HTML, which is just a few lines long. And then we have that CSS, which has all of those different layers within our HTML. And we've styled each of those layers. And now they are talking to each other and displaying our new site. Now we don't have the time to really go into customizing this too much, but if you are a beginner, but you do want to customize some things, easy things to customize in your CSS file, you have this background URL. You can change this to any URL to change the background image. Or you can upload an image the same way we uploaded our HTML, CSS files. And then you just put that path here. And you'll have a new image. Or this color, you can change font colors and all of those things. Yes, Anne.
Hi, sorry. Can you just go back to your file page? I was like, where does the home page folder go? Is it inside the public HTML?
Yes, it would go in this public HTML.
So you create a homepage folder.
Yeah, in here. I didn't do it in my public HTML because this is embarrassing. This is a very messy folder. Your folder should not ever look like this.
Okay.
But I'm building and learning. That's my excuse.
So but you create a folder inside that called homepage.
Yep. So
and
you
then
would add
upload
folder.
these files to it.
You would add folder, you could do homepage, or if all you've got in here is the default files, you can just delete those.
I don't know about deleting anything right now. I just want to
Yeah,
make sure I'm putting this in the right place.
Yep.
And then you go into there and you open, you upload those two, the index and the style sheet.
Yep. So I'll go back to workshops, but you keep working in your public HTML. See, I have this homepage folder.
Right.
I open that. There are my two documents.
Yeah, it doesn't really open for me. Oh, there it is. Okay, directing. Now add file.
Upload. Yep.
Oh, not up.
Yeah, if you add a file, it's just going to add a blank file.
Okay, so where's the upload? Oh, I see. Got you. Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
And I can just pull those from wherever.
From wherever you downloaded them to.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
What to do after uploaded the files? Where can I open the page, the web page?
Yep. So, like I said, it depends on where you're working from. If you're in your public HTML, you can just go to your domain. So my domain is digitalcarpenter.sunycreate.cloud. And it is just a flat site. So my public HTML, that is this index file. That is what it is working with. And it is working with this style sheet. I have a couple style sheets in here. Again, you don't necessarily want that to be how you organize things. That's why I didn't show my public HTML folder. But that is where it's pulling it from. This index file and this style sheet. And then I've got some images in here.
Yeah, I did that, but when I type in my URL, it just brought me back to those SUNY Create, the homepage.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting as well.
Yes. So did you create
did you use your
directory
that you created? Because remember, we made a folder that said homepage.
Yeah,
so this time try to go.
I have homepage folder. I uploaded the two files. Then I lost there
in the folder. So then what you'll want to do is, so I have this workshops.digitalcarpenter.sunycreate.cloud. It won't let me zoom in on my actual browser. But see how I've put this homepage at the end of it? So you need that extra directory information.
Where do I add it?
/homepage.
Yes.
Just type in.
Just type it in at the end.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't know how I missed all that, but
oh no, but this is
we're going so fast.
But I think and then I can just go in and edit the HTML files, both the style sheet and the index.
Yes.
To change the look of it.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what we're trying to show is this is how URLs are constructed.
Yep.
Do you think about URLs as like, oh, that's where files are on the server? Maybe now you do. This is what we're saying about just learning small digital competencies along with this project, because it makes you a little bit more aware of how the internet works.
Yep. So this is
Okay.
just that basic, that subdomain. So workshops.digitalcarpenter.sunycreate.cloud. So that's why I'm getting the SUNY Oneonta. But as soon as I put in that directory information, which is homepage, I get what we just made. Because it's living inside that folder that I'm pointing to specifically.
Okay, I can't get to that HTML editor because when I click on edit HTML or HTML edit, I get a weird little box that says,
Did you do HTML editor or did you do the edit?
no, I right clicked it and got,
This?
yeah, I'm getting this. No, yes, that.
So that's just a warning, and
It's
that's
just a
okay.
warning.
And just press edit in the lower right hand corner.
All right.
Right down here.
Okay, sorry to make you repeat everything, and I apologize to everyone else for taking up your time.
Nope,
Okay.
nope, that's totally fine. So then again, just things that you might want to change is this title tag in that head. This is going to change what pops up in the tab, that tab title. And then either one of these H1, H2, these paragraph or this paragraph. And then your style sheet, which is probably the most important, needs to be linked right next to this href. And it needs to match exactly the way that the file name is in your folder. And it needs to be between these quotation marks without any spaces. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Any other questions? Otherwise, I think I've made my points.
Hey, thanks,
I
Aretha.
do have it typed out, the steps that we followed, so I can send those along with our slides as well.
Yeah, that will be helpful.
Yeah.
All right. So we just want to raise awareness at this point. What we were hoping you took away from that is files make up websites, and the files can be connected together the way we added that CSS to an existing one. Oh, I see we have a hand raised. Hey, Angela.
Hi, you put up the information about how to create a subdomain, and when I looked at the page, it looks like, can we have actual multiple domains or only one primary domain with subdomains? Like, basically I use my name, so it's, atomcell.sunycreate.cloud, and I wanted to know if there were ways to have ones that didn't have my name right there in the HTML.
So that's been asked by multiple people. So let me just go through it. You can have as many subdomains that have your atomcell as you want. To get one that doesn't have atomcell, that would require you to put a ticket in by writing an email to oer@suny.edu, and it would kind of take a little bit of special configuration for you to be able to have multiple domains. It is possible, but it is a conversation that kind of has to happen between you and OER services. So you can have as many subdomains of your address as you want. But if you want to go completely back out and not use the name that you made when you first started up, then you need a separate cPanel account. And so that's something that you'd have to work with Tony and the people at OER services to do.
But changing your one, like, okay, I just put in my name, then it's like, oh no, now I have like something cool like Digital Carpenter. That's again just oer@suny.edu and say I need to change my name because I was boring, but I'm not anymore.
Yeah.
Hi, Ann, it's Tony. Yeah, that is something we can actually change for you, but you do have to submit a ticket as Ed mentioned.
Fantastic. Thank you. And that's oer.suny.edu, OER@.
Yep.
Yes.
Everybody always has buyer's remorse over the names. That's why I try to like, hey, here's 10 minutes to think about what you want your domain name to be. You are not the only one. Okay. So I'm here. And again, we just want you to be able to think about like, okay, sites are made up as files. I'm going to get more complicated, right? Because we're supposed to be going through the history of the internet through here. And, you know, the big difference between what we call Web 1.0 versus Web 2.0 is the idea that you can read and write directly from a website. And so Ruth showed you that very simple HTML site, but then look at this picture over here. There's many parts of a modern, complex HTML website. And so what started to happen is people said, oh, if I want the same header on every single one of my site, I don't want to have to retype the header over and over and over again. So what if we separated out that file and I have a separate file just for my header, and then I just pull that into my site dynamically? Or if I have the same sidebar on every single one of my sites, but only the content is changing. The real big change between Web 1.0 and Web 2.0 was the idea that we added a database into the mix. Once you add a database, then the content of your page is stored somewhere else, and the database exists in here. Now, I'm going to show you how to do this, and I'm going to invite you to click along with me. For people who are having a little bit of trouble, it is perfectly valid here to just watch, okay? The reason is not everyone needs to be a car mechanic, but it's a good idea to be able to point under your hood and say, I think there's an engine down there. You do not have to, managing a SUNY Create website, need to be in the database or need to be in the files most days. But it's good to know that the files are there and how it works. This is the digital literacies that we're talking about, okay? So I'm going to go through and I'm going to try to show you how to install WordPress on SUNY Create. We're going to do that through clicking the WordPress link right over here. Hold on one second. I'm going to delete the WordPress that's already here. So now I'm back at the main page, and I want to install a brand new WordPress installation on my site. We're going to do it through an application that we call Installatron. So here I am. I just clicked on WordPress in the top left-hand corner, and then I'm over here. There's a button that says install this application. That's what we're going to do. Install this application. It's going to ask you, where do you want to install it? And if you hit this drop-down menu, you're going to see your domain. You're going to get a choice. Do I want to install it on HTTP or HTTPS? At this point, it doesn't matter. We're just going to install it right on HTTP. If you had gone through the trouble of creating additional subdomains, I know some people jumped right to the idea, could I have additional subdomains? You see how I was able to create a subdomain here? If I had already created a subdomain, that subdomain would show up here as well. I'm going to leave this directory field blank because when people visit demo.sunycreate.cloud, I want them to get to my website. I don't want them to have to put anything after the slash. I could put it in a folder and call it WordPress here, but I don't want that. It's going to ask me what version of WordPress I want to install, and I'm going to leave it at the default. The default is the latest version. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to accept the license agreement. I'm just showing you here. I'm just keeping all of the defaults. It's going to ask me if I want to automatically upgrade to the newest versions of WordPress, and if it wants to automatically update my plugins and themes for me. I think that's a nice feature. It's really nice on really simple sites. As sites get more complicated and you've installed a bunch of plugins, you might want to change this later. And even though I'm going to leave this all at the defaults right now, it is something that you can change later.
What about content? Oh, you said go with the clean rather than the works.
Yeah, the works just has some plugins pre-installed for you and some themes pre-installed for you. But I just chose a clean WordPress install. It's going to have no plugins. It's going to be blank, like I just installed it. You can change your username to one that you can remember. You can change your password to a password that you can remember. Try to use good password management here. WordPress powers 41% of the internet. And so because it is used by so many people, it's also a little bit of a target. So you wouldn't want to use, like, say, one of the most 100 used passwords. You wouldn't want to use password for this. You wouldn't even want to use admin for your username, because there are robots that go around the internet and find WordPress sites and try admin and change me as the password for people who have like turned their site over to someone else and made their password change me temporarily so they would change it later, and they never did it, and then it gets taken over and turned into an anti-Israel site, like what happened to Ed Beck in 2003. Remember, I told you everything I know about the internet because I broke it once. I gave a website to somebody for a not-profit organization. I changed the password to change me so that the username was admin and change me, and that website got hijacked. Please don't do that. I'm going to leave everything else. This is a nice little plugin, limit logins. That actually stops bots from being able to like spam your website. It's going to be the thing that locks you out of your website if you get the password wrong more than 3 times. And I'm just going to press the install button. What that's going to do is that's going to build me a database to store all my materials. That's going to build my file structure. WordPress was really famous for what they called their 5-minute install. They said, oh, in 5 minutes, you can install a working website. But in the 5-minute install, it was like directions of how you could go into a server and from the command line, create a new database, create all the files, download the files to your computer and upload them. We use more modern tools. We use this Installatron, so it just happens in, 10 seconds rather than the 5 minutes of you doing it.
You chose automatically manage advanced settings.
Yep.
And then just install.
Yep. And all of those settings you can redo later on.
And when
it's not a permanent decision.
Administrator username and password, that was for SUNY Create. Because that's what it's saving it as.
That's for your website.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm installing a website that has its own user logins. Now I'm going to show you in WordPress, there's kind of something nice. You don't have to really remember and use your username because you can use a magic link that just automatically signs you in. I think that's quite nice. I always worry when I do a live session like this, I've got 40 people creating new sites all at the exact same time, but I think it's going to be okay. So what I want to do is I'm going to go back up and I'm going to go to my site, demo.sunycreate.cloud. I'm going to go to it. I could click on this link right here, or I can just put that into my navigation bar. Okay. And I have the welcome to WordPress screen. I have a simple WordPress site loaded on my SUNY Create account. We're going to go back and kind of inspect this and see what this is and what that looks like. But I've installed a dynamic web application that includes many moving parts, including databases. It uses more complex file structure. But what it allows me to do is control my website just from the website itself, instead of having to go through files and PHP. So I'm back here and I'm at my cPanel homepage, and now I want to see that application that I've already installed. So I'm going to go over here to this thing that says My Apps. And if I visit My Apps, I see my blog, and I see 3 links over here. I'm going to use the middle link, the one that says demo.sunycreate.cloud/WordPress admin. This is a magic link that when I click on it, will not only bring me to the WordPress admin, but it will log me in automatically using those credentials that I've already created. Not every application is as tightly integrated with cPanel as WordPress is. And I want to warn you about that. If you install an Omeka, if you install a Scalar, you're going to have to log in through that website's login area. But with WordPress only, you can just click the link and it will automatically sign you in. Now, one of the coolest things about WordPress is you can have plugins. You can change plugins or add additional plugins. And so what I want to do is I want to show you when we add a plugin, what does that really mean in the file structure of SUNY Create. So I've got this website, and it says I have 4 plugins installed. 3 of them are activated. 1 of them is not activated. I'm going to go back to my SUNY Create screen. I want to go to my file manager in here. So files is down about halfway down the page, and file manager is right there. It's one of the links on the left-hand side. I want to click that, and I'm going to go into that public HTML folder, which is now full. All of the files that make WordPress run are now in that folder. I'm going to follow along to the WordPress content folder. And inside the WordPress comment folder, we've got 2 very, well, they're all important, but we've got several important folders. Here is the plugin folder. What does it mean to have a plugin installed in WordPress? It means there's folders of files. These are my WordPress plugins. Now, WordPress is awesome that you can install new plugins directly from the website. You don't even have to do it from cPanel. So I'm going to go back to my WordPress site. I'm going to go to the plugins area over here. And like I said, you don't need to follow along here. If you want to just follow at this point, that's okay. Or you can follow right along with me. I'm going to add a new plugin. There is a very simple plugin made for WordPress. It was one of the very first plugins, and its entire purpose is just to teach you about plugins. The plugin is called Hello Dolly. And so I searched for Hello Dolly in the search bar in the top right corner, and I downloaded that Hello Dolly plugin. When I activate the Hello Dolly plugin, it doesn't do much. The only thing the Hello Dolly plugin does is it puts one lyric, one line from the song Hello Dolly in the top right corner of the admin dashboard of WordPress. That's all it does. You'll notice it only does it when I've activated the plugin. If I click deactivate on the plugin, that lyric disappears. If I click activate again, it appears again. Every time I load, it's going to give me a different line from Hello Dolly. But if I go back to my SUNY Create cPanel, now it's not, this is kind of like an older file manager where you have to actually reload the page. It doesn't automatically reload. But if I go to that public HTML folder and I go to the WordPress comment and I go to plugins, you can see Hello Dolly is now there with my other WordPress folders. This is important because WordPress has made it so easy to manage your site just directly from the WordPress dashboard. You really don't need to come back to cPanel to manage a WordPress site. You can do almost everything you need to do right from WordPress. You don't need to do it from cPanel. That is not true of all web applications. In fact, Omeka requires that whenever you install a plugin, you have to upload the folder into their plugins folder. Another one, MediaWiki, requires that you upload the files into their plugins folder for every single plugin. They do not have the ability to do it through kind of the user interface. So these web skills aren't all that important with WordPress. You don't need to know how to do this, but it's nice to be able to know how it is working. On the WordPress website, or on a WordPress website, they have a first post that just says, "Hello world, welcome to WordPress. This is your first post. Edit or delete it, then start writing." The last thing that I want to do, kind of getting into cPanel to show you how all this is working, is I want to show you that post in the WordPress database. So down below files, we have our databases. We use a viewer for our database called PHP admin, and I'm going to click on that and open up my database. I have my demo SUNY WordPress 1 database right here. I'm going to open it up. You can see my database has a bunch of different tables in it. If I go to my WP posts database, line 1 has a HTML content in here. Here is what was saved that creates my web page. So my main takeaways here, what I want to teach you about this is modern websites are built with databases, with code that pulls from those databases based on rules created by our files. All of it working together in what we called that LAMP stack, which was Linux, Apache, which turns your, any folder on your computer into a website, MySQL, which is the name of our database that we're using, and then PHP, our programming language. If we think about our programming languages and we think about PHP, we can think about it as if-then statements. So it's saying, okay, if a user is logged into WordPress, show them that black ribbon at the top where they can control their website. If a user has a high enough role, show them the edit button so that they can change what's on the website. Isn't always like that. Some websites are dynamic and they sense you. Oh, you are from this zip code. Let me show you weather for this zip code. The PHP or other programming languages, because not all websites are built with PHP, allow you to do that type of customization. And then the PHP is also what allows us to pull things dynamically from the database. Okay. What's so wonderful about what we call the LAMP server is that this was the way websites were built for like 10 years. And so we had a lot of applications that used the same software stack. By just having Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP available, we're not able to just use WordPress, but Omeka uses the same 4 foundational programs to work, or Pressbooks, or Scalar, or MediaWiki, the wiki that runs Wikipedia. since so many of these programs just use the same open source infrastructure, that makes things like SUNY Create possible. Because installing it once on the computer and then letting everyone pull from those same things allows us each to have our own website. And I think that's pretty cool. Okay. This catalog in here is humongous of programs and things that run on the LAMP stack that can work on SUNY Create. But the honest truth is, most people stay right here in this top row and are looking at WordPress, Omeka, Omeka S, Scalar. And I want to talk about Pressbooks for a second, because we're an OER conference and Pressbooks is often a very common thing that people ask for. By installing Pressbooks using this installer, you could run your own Pressbooks. Pressbooks lets you have multiple books on a single server. It's like having your own library. Now, we at SUNY have really wondered if that's a good idea for every single person to be running and managing their own Pressbooks. So what we did is we created one pressbooks.sunycreate.cloud. And we made this site, which is open for signups, so that you could request a username on this site and run Pressbooks without having to do the full cPanel treatment, without having to run it yourself. And we think that's a good fit for most people. That's why from this one Pressbooks, we've got a catalog of books coming from SUNY Oneonta, coming from Buffalo, coming from other places. We even got a historical society that has used it. And those are all available and on this one Pressbooks server. So if you came here thinking, I want to learn more about Pressbooks, you could run your own Pressbooks server. It is a little bit more difficult. Or if you just want a single book on a Pressbooks server that somebody else runs for you, that's also an option. Okay. How's everybody doing? We went through a lot. It's been 2 hours. We didn't take a break.
It's good. I was able to catch up.
Everybody was able to catch up?
Yeah.
It's good. Ed. Thank you.
I want to talk about Moodle for a second. We don't use Moodle very extensively in SUNY Create, but I've got one running. I've got a Moodle running at courses.sunycreate.cloud, and I put it together because there was a particular project at my institution where students wanted to create a course, and the course they were creating was for people outside of Oneonta. It wasn't like something that we could put in our own LMS. They wanted to create a nutrition course for law enforcement personnel, because these are people that have to like keep fit for their entire lives due to the profession that they've chosen. And so we were working with the police academy that's on the SUNY Oneonta campus, and we wanted to make this as an open resource for them. And this was 2 students' work as their capstone project, and I'm quite proud of them. But, I kind of talked at the beginning about how, some people don't recognize open source when it comes time to make decisions for an organization, as large as SUNY. And Moodle is the #1 used LMS in the world. And it's openly licensed, which means if you go to Moodle, you can go and download their latest version. And they keep a lot of different releases all at the same time. Moodle's actually released weekly. Every week, they release different bug fixes for the current package. And what that allows us to do is, when we talk about like these big software as a service companies, they say, oh, we're going to continuously give you updates. You're constantly running the most latest version. And when we think about infrastructure for a large organization like SUNY, we need that kind of service. But why I'm highlighting Moodle is because it's used as critical infrastructure by so many institutions, the same way WordPress is, the same way Drupal is they have made it easy to update. So Moodle has version management. And so if I were to go to github.com Moodle, they use GitHub to keep everyone who runs that software so they can have the most recent version. They do it through having different branches. So they have a branch for their most recent release. Then they have older branches that they're still supporting and pushing security releases to. And like I said, they release those every single week. Every single Monday, they release a security release of Moodle. So I'm going to show you on SUNY Create where we have a Moodle instance, and I'm going to update it to the latest version. And I'm going to do it not the way you would on SUNY Create, because if you are running a server on SUNY Create, what you would do is you would go to My Apps, and if there was a plugin that was out of date, it would say, hey, this is running an older version. This is running WordPress 6.1.1. And you'd click on it and say, hey, you know what? I think it is time to update that to the latest version. And you'd click on update. And just like we installed before, you could pick which version you want to update to. You'd say, yes, why don't you take a backup before doing it? And it would do all the work for me. Okay? But we're doing it this way because we've given you tools to try to make it easy for you, right? I'm going to go and show you what like a professional would do if they were updating. And they would go into the terminal, which is the command line version. And they would say, oh, where am I? So they would put ls, and they would see all of the different folders that are in this directory that I'm in. And they would go change directory. I want to go to the Moodle directory. And you can see all the files by pressing ls again that make up my Moodle installation that I showed you. That's right at courses.sunycreate.cloud. And what they would do is they would pull from GitHub all of the changes that have happened in the last week. And they'd say git pull. Now this directory has already been connected to GitHub, and it would say, okay, let's go through and look at every single file, and I will tell you what changed and what didn't change in that file. And you can say, here's a list of the files that were changed with the command I just did. And over here on the right, it's how much changes there were and whether they were additional lines or subtractions. And those are all the changes that just happened. And now, because I did that, my Moodle's running the latest version. My point here is that by being aware of open source tools and being aware of how different tools do their updates, we can be more prepared when we log in and when we talk to professionals during procurement, when it's time to build a new resource, and you can say, oh, actually, Moodle seems to be under a really good update cycle. Oh, it is mission critical infrastructure at different colleges and universities. It is released very often. And there are other colleges and universities that are using that at scale. And I'd love for SUNY to be more aware of the open source technology that we can run, not to be run on SUNY Create, because that's not necessarily where every piece of technology needs to be run. But, you know, in France, instead of everyone using YouTube, everyone set up a PeerTube installation. Every high school in France set up their own PeerTube. Instead of using Google's infrastructure, they use their own open source infrastructure. It's an example of an entire country using open source infrastructure instead of commercial infrastructure. I think we have to talk about that a little bit more. Or I already used the Germans who use Moodle instead of, you know, paying D2L to host theirs. They're part of a open source community and collaborative. At my institution, for our e-portfolios, instead of paying for a service like Digication, instead, we went and we built our Open Lab, which is a WordPress multi-site designed for open education, built by CUNY. I had to do my research on them. I had to see, okay, if I want to run something on Open Lab, how often is Open Lab being updated? Twice a year. They only do it on the semesters intentionally so that changes aren't happening during the school year. They're not doing it weekly, they're doing it twice a year. Were other people using it? Oh, I found out that Oneonta's using it, New Haven's using it, Geneseo's using it. The first Open Lab is at the City Tech College, where our old friend Jose from FIT is now. So there are other people that are using this infrastructure, and I think that that's important. People are funding open source offices throughout higher ed to do this type of advocacy and this type of work. And I think if we're not paying attention to it at SUNY, we can fall behind. And so I just wanted to finish with that kind of talk about, you know, I think open source infrastructure is very important. I think running a simple website on WordPress for your own personal portfolio is like a nice small step forward to having a larger conversation about open source that we need to keep having. And I hope that we keep pushing from it from our area as OER advocates.
Thank you, Ed and Ruth, for a great workshop. I like how interactive that was, and it sounds like the audience did as well. We have just another couple moments for questions, but Ed and Ruth, would you mind popping your contact info in the chat so that if there are follow-up questions, folks can get a hold of you? Yeah. And I did just want to let everyone know, if you are signed up for the second pre-conference workshop, it will be on this same Zoom link, so you're welcome to just stay on there. Yeah, and it's interested in like
Carnegie Mellon's open source software that they use. That one of our partners uses open source software as the basis for it. I think that's important. So for those of you that are coming in for that second workshop, thank you for being part of that, because I want to keep talking about that.
And there are a couple questions in the chat there. I don't know if you can see them, Ed and Ruth.
Carla, you made it on stateu.org instead of sunycreate.cloud. Yeah, they clean those sites out from time to time because that's really a demo site for people who are considering buying the infrastructure that we've purchased at SUNY. So that might disappear, but everything you did is completely transferable to our infrastructure at StateU. At SUNY Create.
It said if you weren't a SUNY school to make it on the other site when I first came on.
Yeah. So where are you from?
St. Bonaventure.
Ah, yes.
Yep. So we use Moodle. I love it. We've used it since 2009.
All of SUNY moved to D2L recently.
Yeah, and
big RFP, long multi-year process.
There were a couple questions about how SUNY Create integrates with D2L.
Yes, those are mine, actually.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can post links from and to. but it's not really made to do like a single sign-on, LTI, those types of things. But if we're not putting it behind login walls, which is part of why many people choose an option like SUNY Create, you don't need to integrate it in that way. You can just use kind of dumb links.
Right. I mean, that part's easy. It's that with this switch over to Brightspace D2L in a multi-tenant environment where it's kind of like we're required to use, I mean, we are required to use Brightspace for all of our distance learning, hybrid, high flex, whatever, all of our courses. So, and just being a link through is sort of frowned upon, because that's like not using D2L. It's like saying, oh yes, you log in here and then go to my Moodle site and forget D2L.
Oh, I wouldn't run a Moodle site side by side for your own students. That'll get me in trouble. The reason we chose Moodle for that one was the audience was outside of SUNY. We weren't creating it for a SUNY audience.
Right.
I do want to be respectful to our new presenters. We are using the same